Hi everybody, welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name's Patrick, I'll be your host. So I figured we'd go ahead and get a quick 30-minute video up on getting some decals in place on our USS Curtis Wilbur, scale 1/200 by I Love Kit. And for the most part, those decals are just going to be on the port side, numbers 7, 9, 28, and 32. On the starboard side, 6, 9, and 32. And on the fore part of the main superstructure assembly, number 28. Looks like just 8 decals in total. And I just want to put this out there in case anyone's noticed it. I had decided, I made a conscious decision to avoid putting on the red warning stripes around the close-in weapon system here, and I will do the same back here as well. Looks like it's a combination of decals of 39, 40, 41, and 42, and 34, 35, 36, 37. And it's just because there's not enough room on those assemblies to put those decals on. There's just absolutely no way they're going to fall on there in any way, shape, or form that's going to look halfway decent. So I left those off completely and am planning on leaving them off and not accommodating for that in any way. So if that is a deal breaker for you, I'm sorry, shame on me, but yeah, we're just going to get some of the main decals on there for the superstructure. Eventually we'll get some of these big decals here on the funnel structure back here and for our helo, but really that's about it as far as decals. The ship has got enough detail that most of the actual structure and some of the details on there should speak enough for itself without having to be embellished and festooned with tons of decals. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Alright, so for applying decals, I'll point out one though, we're only putting decals on this piece and this piece here. And it's going to be these decals here. Those are actually, that's 9, 6, and 7. These are handed, and 2 28s and 2 32s. One of these 28s goes on this part here, and then the rest of these will go onto that piece there. So, in order to do that, we are going to start with microset. I've got a brush for that. I've got some warm water. And what we'll do is we will dip these and let them sit for about 30 seconds. And then using tweezers, we will move them out of the part and slide them on top of the microset. After I get those down, I usually like to get everything down, rinse out my brush, and then apply microsol on top of that afterwards. That'll kind of help, again, this helps adhere it to the project, and this will help kind of set it in place and get rid of a lot of that extra carrier film to kind of help give it that look where it on the bottle for a painted on look. So tweezers, paintbrush, I use this usually to split my decals. I don't like cutting like that because that tends to leave raised edges on the decal film or the paper. So I just use this and kind of push this down and able to go around what I would like to work with in that particular spot. And toothpicks to kind of help slide things around, and this to Q-tips to help dab up any extra solution. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here with one of the 28s. Now, it's interesting in that I'm sure that's supposed to go, this is right side up right now, where that's going up. But it's so small that I don't know if it really matters that much after you get it in place. But we will still do our best. It's just that's going to be a little fun to get to. But if I look at our directions, it looks precisely like that's where it goes, is right in between this upper fire hose reel and the ladder. So, dip them. Okay, now while that does its thing and lets the water soften up the adhesive that's holding it onto the backing paper, I usually like to give it about 30 seconds. I just take a brush, and this is a garbage chute brush. It's not really a great brush or anything like that. It's just one of those ones you can get a hobby store, a craft store for, you know, like $5, and you get like 50 different assorted brushes. There are choices when it comes to your setting solution. Some of them offer a kind of a one chemical solution to do it all. Others, you know, have, like the micro scale industries have the set and the sol. The sol stands for solvent. That's where it's kind of dissolving some of that carrier film. One thing I've noticed about these decals is once you get them on the subject, they don't like to move. Okay, so there we go. And we got that in place. And take one of our Q-tips. Okay, so that one of our number 28s is now in place. If you can see that, and you can see there is a little bit of carrier film there. It's going to be nice and shiny. So when we get all these applied, we'll follow it up with a microsol and kind of help that settle in a little bit more even. And then after that, another clear coat should help that carrier film disappear completely. So we put him aside. Just so I'm not knocking things out of the way or anything like that. Okay, so our next one here. I've got another number 28, and this other number 28 goes in the front of this superstructure part. It looks like it goes right there above that. So that's where we're going to put it. This is what I can see from the decal placement sheet. So that looks about right. So we'll go ahead and again punch it out. Now I can get rid of, as I go about doing this, I always try to put these way outside of the way. I don't decal paper. The second it hits a little bit of moisture, it gets sticky. So the one thing I don't want this to happen is for these numbers to come off the backing paper and magically show up with other decals. So I always try to make sure after I get them cut away, I get those numbers out of the way where I'm not going to accidentally touch them or you know, expose them to any kind of moisture. So. So again, it's doing its thing. We'll get some more micro set. And these chemicals for the set and the sol, they're not particularly potent. There are definitely some stronger chemical solutions out there, but they can affect different paints. So it's always worth checking on, you know, not on your subject. You don't want to find out for the very first time that these chemicals are affecting some new paint that you've tried on the actual subject you're working on. So when I was, for instance, doing the hull, and you know, back in like I think video 1 or video 2, I was applying some of the decals of some of the setting solutions on some of the stuff on the hull, and that allowed me to make sure that the decals snuggled down, and also allowed me to ensure that the solutions weren't going to affect some of the primer and some of the paint that I've used. So you want to test things out and not discover at the very last second that it's going to adversely affect the paint or the finish on your project. Okay, almost straight. All right, that looks good. Go ahead and quickly, gently touch that. Okay, so both of the decal number 28s that are on the decal sheet have now been applied, and probably going to be what I would deem the more challenging of the decals on this superstructure piece. But it remains to be seen. We'll see. Number 9s, and the number 9s look like they go right there. So we'll go ahead and work on getting one of those off and getting it into place next. And again, I'll try to pay attention to right side up here. It looks like the red half of this square is going up and to our left, but it would be starboard on the ship. Up, starboard. So I'll go ahead and let that decal do its thing. Go ahead and get some of our micro set. And one thing I've had constant struggle with is hitting these tiny little antennae here. I'm not, for my life, always been the most graceful person ever. In fact, I think my mother would sometimes describe me as clumsy. So if you are anywhere like that, then there's a chance you may knock something like that little antenna off. Okay, so quickly here to get this in place. And hopefully, no, it looks like this goes up a bit. Just a bit. What I'm trying to do is kind of get it parallel with the line of where the deck needs this bulkhead. Okay, that looks good. I'll go ahead and tap him down gently, very, very gently. That looks pretty good. I think these decals are offering a little bit of color to otherwise fairly, I wouldn't say bland, but you know, not very varied color scheme. So again, taking the number and getting it the hell away from the other decals or the project. And again, up, starboard. Our left, ship starboard. decal do its thing on the paper. Yeah, there's another one of those antennas. I'll be honest with you, I think it is a small miracle that I haven't knocked them off completely. Okay, so I've had another member in another forum had advised that I should get everything put together, get everything painted and coated, and then apply decals. The contention I hold with that order of operations is if there is eventually going to be a railing right here, good luck. I don't wish anyone failure. I wish them all the luck on earth in getting that decal into place with a railing right there. Alright, so getting decals on now is definitely a preference for me. Okay, so next up is on the ship's port side there, we're going to put on decal number 7. So for my water, I usually use either a coffee mug or a double-walled cup, something like that that'll kind of help hold the heat in on the water. And I don't use hot water, I just use warm water. Hot water might alter the decal too much. Warm water is sufficient. And so then I will dip that into the water, into the warm water, for about 10 seconds. And then set it aside on a piece of paper towel to continue soaking and being damp while I go about applying the microset. So, here we go. Decals are not a favorite part of a build for me. Alright, so when this happens here, you can see it doesn't want to move. We can take some water. I rinsed off my brush, just take some water and start just kind of trying to I would say this would be the physical form of suggesting to the decal that it move. You don't want to be forceful. If you're forceful with it, then we end up with a bent or folded decal. And just a physical suggestion that we want it to move a little bit. That's pretty good. No folding. It still looks off, but even looking at the carrier film, it doesn't look like the E's are perfectly lined up. So I'll just take it as it is. Now there are aftermarket decal sets coming out. I've actually seen some pictures of these on Facebook. They look like they will allow you to build any version of a Flight 1 Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyer. I can't remember exactly how many different hull numbers that means, but there's quite a few. They have got all the different crests, the different ship crests, all the different hull numbers, and it looks like the decal sheet has a lot more of the I guess what you would call stencils if you're an aircraft modeler, and especially if you've ever done an F4 Phantom, then you are aware of what stencil decals are, because there must be what, like 20, maybe 30,000, and that might be a conservative estimate. You're like, you're exaggerating. Oh yeah, of course I'm exaggerating, but for F4 Phantoms there are a lot. And this is absolutely no joke. Okay, so I'm getting, this is number 6, and it's the E's that go on the starboard side of our guided missile destroyer. And get it in place. Alright. That went much more smoothly than the port side. Okay. Now with these decals, I will say this: if you are a perfectionist and making sure that they're going to exactly where it shows on the sheet, then you may not want to use a decal setting solution, because the decals that come in this kit, they're pretty decent, and the carrier film though is very, very thin, and the decals have got a habit of not wanting to move very easily after you've gotten them situated. So I would definitely recommend a good decaling plan, maybe not using a decal setting solution. But also be willing to accept that you may have to live with where they went. Last two decals for this piece here. So, since I know they are both number 32, I'm going to go ahead and cut the dreaded number away. Leaves me with two number 32 ship's crests. And those right back there. Look at this. Just another thing. Why do you only find out that you've got hair in the vicinity after you've put on a clear coat? Some of that will have to get lightly sanded and buffed out. Alright, so I've got about 10 seconds in my warm water to give me a moment or a chance to come over here and apply some microset right there. Part of the fun of doing this and making sure that everyone else can see it is trying to get things situated. Alright. Actually went relatively well, all things considered. So I'll go ahead and get him into place. Okay, too thick. And that is not going to do it, so in the water. Remember, thin decals, we're just merely suggesting they want to move. Not at all like Tamiya decals. If you're used to Tamiya decals, they are beautiful decals, but they are also very robust. And I mean, when I say robust, they are so thick it's like dealing with a slab of plastic. But they are robust. You can mistreat those decals as much as you please. Okay, so good. Home stretch. There we go. Micro set. And then I'm going to, oh, probably couldn't hear me or understand me. With that last decal, I wanted to cap up the micro set. It's just one of those things where if you invite Mr. Murphy in, he will begin immediately exerting his laws. I don't care for it, so we don't invite him to the party. Okay. Last decal separated from the carrier film, and let's see if it's going to let me move it. I wonder if there is anyone out there watching this that can give me or us viewers some idea of the symbolism behind this unit crest or this ship's crest. I'll look it up online myself, and if we don't hear any response in a couple videos, I will mention that. Okay, those are in place. All the decals are in place. Meaning, my last chore on this is applying some microsol. And so I have rinsed my brush off and dry it off on a paper towel. And now I'm going to get just a little, just to make sure you're covering your decals, and nothing really special on putting this on, just dab it on. And move on. You don't have to scrub it or anything like that, just a quick dab. We want to make sure that the decal and its carrier film are covered. Okay, and no, I'm not going to forget. And this one up here too. Uh-oh. Looks like somewhere along the way I picked up a hair I had to get rid of. Okay, so there we go. Okay, that'll do it for decal work. Okay, decal's been applied. The microsol has completely dried up. So I'm just going to give you a quick view of what we've got, where these are. See there and there. See there. There, there, and there. All in all, looks great. Adds a little bit of color, a little bit of spice to a very gray subject matter. So with that, our next step is going to be taking that and securing it down to the hull, and then blending it in with the hull. After we get through with doing that, then we'll move on to that aft funnel structure. Probably do that in a couple parts of getting everything assembled, and then painting it with some detail painting. That gets clear coated, decals secured, and then we get on to finishing the whole kit and caboodle. So, got any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions? Please let me know. Leave that feedback for me in the comment section below the video. Thank you, as always, for your time. Thank you for watching. And until I see you next time, stay safe. Happy modeling.